If you are a regular consumer of social media, I think that you have probably noticed, as I have, that the general population is not really well represented on the internet. I think a large majority of the people who we see posting on the internet fall into two general categories. They are either a content creator and creating content is their full-time job, or they are a business owner. And both of them, whether on purpose or by accident, can a lot of times start to communicate and demonize the 9 to 5 life. And some of them do this intentionally and openly, telling people that nobody should be working in a 9 to 5 corporate job. Some of them do it a little bit more under wraps, talking about how they were so miserable in their 9 to 5, playing to those emotions of hate of their 9 to 5 and kind of romanticizing the life that they have now, communicating how it's so much better than it used to be when they were at their 9 to 5. And in these cases, once you continue to consume this type of content, it is really easy to start to romanticize a life that you don't have and be convinced that you need to quit your 9 to 5. If you're like me, maybe you even start to dream and think and obsess over what life would be like if you just didn't have your 9 to 5 and you could do something else. I have my own journey with this that I'm going to share throughout this video, but overall what I would like to communicate and share is how I made peace with my 9 to 5 job and how you can too. A general disclaimer that I want to put on this entire video is that if you are in a 9 to 5 working for someone else environment and it is toxic, it is truly messing with and destroying and deteriorating your mental health, or it's not the career path that you want to be on, in no way, shape, or form am I discouraging you from making a change. I'm generally just talking about the demonization of the 9 to 5 and how to overcome that. I'm going to go over a couple of misconceptions that people often have when they're considering leaving their 9 to 5. And these are all misconceptions that I had. And then I'm going to share some of the mindset shifts that I had to make in order to make peace with my 9 to 5 job and literally change my life. The first misconception that people have is my 9 to 5 is causing all of my problems. When I first graduated college and I started at my new job, I worked there for probably about 4 or 5 months. I was super excited and just jazzed about starting my career. But after the dust settled of the excitement, I started to have a lot of feelings around my day-to-day life at my job. So many feelings that I actually decided to write them down because there was just so many. I felt boredom, rejection. I did not feel good enough. I felt underappreciated, frustrated, like a failure. I had a hard time working with others. I was very stressed. I had imposter syndrome. I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. I didn't feel like I had enough free time. I was also frustrated with the feeling of never being finished. So after some time passed with these feelings, I decided to make a change. I decided to enroll in IIN, which is Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I wanted to become a health coach. So I pursued this, I went to the schooling for it, and then I really wanted to make this my full-time thing. And so I paid thousands of dollars for various coaches to help me build my business, get clients, because I really wanted to quit my 9 to 5 and make this my full-time thing. I pursued this small business for about 8 months, and that's when I realized something really horrifying. And that was that all of my problems that I felt in my full-time job just followed me. I still felt bored. I still didn't feel like I was fulfilled. I still felt stressed. I felt inadequate. Just everything. Those feelings stayed with me. And maybe you haven't pursued your own business like I have, but maybe at each job that you go to, you keep experiencing the same feelings or situations. And that means that you might have a pattern. I had to realize that I had a pattern. And anytime that there is a pattern, it's time to take responsibility. So instead of blaming my 9 to 5 for all of my problems, I had to ask myself, how am I contributing to the problems that I'm experiencing at my 9 to 5? I know this can be a really hard pill to swallow it. Trust me, I have swallowed it. I definitely had to do this. It was not easy, but I had to really sit down and ask myself, how am I playing a victim in my 9 to 5 life? For example, I was bored. I had to come up with ideas to make my life less boring. I had to find ways to make work more fun. And that was a very personal journey for me. but I could not blame my work 100% for my feelings of boredom, not feeling good enough. I had to accept responsibility for letting people make me not feel good enough, but then also realizing that I was the number one driver of the car of not feeling good enough. And I had to take that responsibility and start to change my mindset to help me feel good enough regardless of the situation. Another huge one was that I did not have enough time. I mean, when I was at my job feeling like I didn't have enough free time, in this particular job, I was working probably 45 to 46 hours a week from home, but I was just always so frustrated because I just felt like I did not have enough time. I didn't have enough free time, and it was just something that I was always complaining about. And then when I decided to take responsibility for this, I asked myself, what do I even want to be doing with my free time that I'm not able to do right now? And I realized that every bit of free time that I even had, I wasn't treating that free time well. I was just watching TV, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with watching TV, but it was like all of these things that I wanted to do, I was actually completely capable of doing. I just wasn't spending the free time that I had correctly. And it's kind of like the same thing people talk about, like if you can't manage, making $20,000 a year, you couldn't manage making $1 million a year. It's kind of that same thing. So instead of blaming the amount of time that I felt like I didn't have, I started actually utilizing the time that I did have. And then I realized, oh, I actually have a lot of time that I've been wasting outside of work that I can pursue these different, hobbies or opportunities. And it actually wasn't my 9-to-5's fault. It was my fault for not being active in utilizing my time the best way that I could. So instead of blaming your 9-to-5 for all of your problems, it's time to start to take responsibility and ask yourself how you might be contributing to the problems and feelings that you're experiencing at your 9-to-5 job, because they might follow you. Maybe they already have followed you, and it's time to correct that. The second misconception that you might be experiencing is the thought, I'm not doing what I was meant to be doing. Now, the disclaimer for this is that maybe you really do have a passion and a dream and something that you really want to be doing that you're not currently doing at the moment. And in that case, I'd say you should definitely do that thing. But I'm not referring to these types of people in this particular misconception. I'm referring to people like me who do not feel fulfilled and are convinced that there's something else that will fulfill them if only you could find it. But from my personal experience, the issue with this is that you can waste so much time chasing the idea that there is something perfect for you to be doing that you miss out on life. You could be so convinced that this idea of what you feel like you should be doing is so important and you refuse to feel fulfilled in any other situation that you start to really waste your life and your time. The only thing that this leads to is discontent every single time. Now, I don't know if there is a calling out there for everybody, but what I do know is that if we all have a calling in this life, I don't think that everyone's calling is so tightly intertwined with the way that they make money. I don't think that the way that we make money necessarily has to be our calling. I guess another way for me to say this is that you are so much more than the way that you make money. There are so many other ways that you can make an impact in this life that has nothing to do with the way that you make money. So if you are constantly trying to chase how you will make money in a way that closely aligns with your calling in life, it might not be in the cards for you, and you could waste your whole entire life searching for that. So the mindset shift that I had to go through for this is that I had to start to decide what I wanted from this life. Instead of looking for something else to be my calling and something else to bring fulfillment to me, I decided to map out my life, map out what I wanted my life to look like, and then start pursuing that. Instead of waiting for the stars to align to show me exactly how I would be fulfilled, I chose fulfillment. Now, another part of this that I'm really not trying to make this sound doom and gloom, it's actually really freeing when you think about it. Maybe you don't have a calling in this life. That's kind of how I feel. I'm not really sure if I have a calling in this life, but that kind of releases the pressure a little bit. It kind of releases this pressure to be finding the right thing all the time, and instead just accepting what you're doing and pursuing things more experimentally instead of putting all this pressure on it to be the thing for you. It's okay to not have a passion, or it's okay if your passion changes every couple of months and so it's not something that you want to pursue monetarily for your full-time work. It's okay to keep your passions separate from the way that you make money, because really that can end up bringing so much more fulfillment to you in your life and basically take away the pressure of having that passion make you money. A big one that comes up with this is that people want more influence. You want to be able to influence more people in your life and kind of make a big impact. And while I do think that that's very noble, I also think that if you are constantly focused on making a huge impact, you miss the opportunity to impact those that are currently in your influence, your family, your friends, your current coworkers. I had to take a step back and think, how am I making my coworkers' life more fun? Or how am I creating more excitement and fun in my individual family? Instead of trying to make this huge impact on the world, I had to take a step back and see how I could make an impact in my current circle. And by doing that, I kind of transformed from a fairly miserable coworker. I was always complaining about everything. I was very pessimistic about everything, to then becoming a coworker that was probably a lot easier to be around because I was just choosing to be more happy and fulfilled and not take things as seriously, which is something that's going to come up in our next misconception. That misconception is I can't have freedom at my 9-to-5 job. Now, the concept of freedom, I think, means different things to everybody. But generally, I think people look at entrepreneurs or content creators and just assume they have so much more freedom than you. The disclaimer is that sometimes they probably do have more freedom than you. And also there are 9-to-5 positions that give you basically zero flexibility. And like I said at the beginning, I'm never discouraging you from finding a 9-to-5 that exists, that gives you the flexibility and the freedom that you're looking for, because they do exist. But the general idea to say that 9-to-5 means no freedom and being an entrepreneur means so much freedom is just not right. I know a few entrepreneurs and they also have very tight deadlines that they're working on. They're juggling a lot of different things. They have a hard time taking vacation or taking breaks. There's not really a way to disconnect. So just saying and putting a blanket statement over entrepreneurship or content creation or whatever that it is more freeing is not 100% true. So the mindset shift that I had to go through for this is open my eyes to how many ways 9-to-5 actually gives me a lot of freedom. I get a guaranteed paycheck, whatever amount that may be, it is guaranteed. Most 9-to-5s have fairly good vacation time off or sick time off policies, paid holidays, really scheduled breaks that you have that might not really be available to entrepreneurs. Another big freedom that you have as somebody in a 9-to-5 is the freedom to care a little bit less. And I'm not trying to get myself in trouble. I'm not trying to get you guys in trouble, but there is a level of caring at a 9-to-5 that you can kind of teeter in between, right? Like you always want to be performing well. You don't want to be a burden on your team or anything like that. But generally, if you're able to take a step back from caring 100% of all of your emotions all the time in your job, you actually have that ability in your 9-to-5. I actually keep a sticky note here on my desk. It says, "It's not that serious." Basically what that communicates to me is that my job does not define my entire life. Most of what I'm dealing with in my day-to-day is not a life or death situation. And by caring a little bit less, I think I was able to create way more freedom in my life because I was working from, let's say, 7:30 to 4:30 or 5 every single day. But then I didn't log off. I was then so emotionally invested in what was going on at my job. I then complained from 5:30 to 8, whether externally or just internally, staying mad at the things that were going on in my job, when I actually could have just logged off at 5:30 and let it go. And that's what I do now. After I close my laptop and I leave my office, I am not thinking about work. And I think that freedom is something that needs to be learned in any situation, but I feel like is a little bit easier in a 9-to-5 because you have the flexibility to not be 100% stakeholder in every single situation like you would be if you own the business. So if you are constantly romanticizing leaving your 9 to 5, thinking that it is the answer to all of your problems, I hope that some of these misconceptions will give you something to think about, because really there is so much freedom and opportunity in sticking with your 9 to 5. It is a totally noble choice. There's nothing wrong with you for sticking with the 9 to 5. And I think that it needs definitely some bigger representation on the internet for sure. But I think that there is a totally possible scenario for you to be happy in your 9 to 5, or generally just happy in the life of a normal work for somebody else person like me. Speaking of, my name is Nicole. I am a working mom, and I am posting content around working from home, working in corporate, kind of balancing life as a working mom. And I would love if you subscribe to my channel and followed along, because I will be making a lot more of these videos, and I'd love to help you out and kind of build a community of other working moms or just other normal people with normal jobs, and we can all kind of help each other out and build that community. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.